Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, at least for me and my family, is definitely one of those movies you rewatch at least once a year because it's just so good. It's got so much to offer. And the last time we watched it, I noticed some really striking aesthetic similarities between Willy Wonka, his factory, and Sheogorath and the Shivering Isles. At first I thought that's all it was. They happen to be stylistically similar. I even tweeted about it while I was watching. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it went far beyond fancy purple clothes and giant mushrooms. So I'm going to take a look at a few aspects of both of these characters and the stories that they're a part of and see just how similar they are. So the first thing that became abundantly clear to me as I kept watching the film with this thought in my head was how similar the two are as characters. There's of course the striking visual similarity we noticed right off the bat. These fancy purple and golden clothes and canes. Also, their roles in the world were the same. They're both the omnipotent rulers of their realms both of which are entirely removed and isolated from reality. The Shivering Isles, of course, is an alternate dimension that must be crossed into via a magical door, while the Chocolate Factory is this distant and mysterious industrial plant that no one's been into and no one knows anything about.
Nobody ever goes in. Nobody ever comes out.
Beyond that, they're both very detached people that seem not to care about the fate of those around them.
Don't do that! You're contaminating my entire river! Please, I beg you, Augustin! My chocolate! My chocolate! My beautiful chocolate!
Don't just stand there, do something!
Help. Police. Murder.
Their thoughts are in another place altogether from those around them, and because of that, they seem to interact with those around them as if they're less than human and something more akin to a joke or a liability. And they both have a very short fuse for those who aren't obedient and attentive to them.
My Syl is dead? This can't be right. Is this right? What have you done? Have you done this?
Hold your tongue, little Duke, or I'll tear it from your mouth.
Apart from their cold and detached nature, they're both very bipolar. They will go from joy to rage at the drop of a hat.
I'm so happy I could just tear out your intestines and strangle you with them. I suppose an introduction is in order. I'm Sheogorath, Prince of Madness, and other things. I'm not talking about them. You've probably figured that out by now. Let's hope so, or we're in real trouble. And out come the intestines, and I skip rope with them.
You lose! Good day, sir! You won! You did it! You did it! I knew you would! I just knew you would!
This theme of two extremes and constant dispute is prominent in both characters. Obviously with Sheogorath it is more pronounced. His whole world is split into mania and dementia, and he exhibits this in his behavior. This is also exhibited by Willy Wonka, though, just in a much more subtle but still prominent way. They also speak in a very specifically similar style, but we'll get more into that later. Going back to how they treat people like they're beneath them, I think they share the same reason for doing that as well. Obviously, Sheogorath is essentially a literal god, so of course he will treat people around them as if they are mere mortals, which to him they are. And Willy Wonka is a heavily implied metaphorical Christian god. In the song Candyman, they infer that he makes the world go around with his candy. He sparks joy universally. Everyone has this beaming, starstruck opinion of him, but no one has ever seen him, and very few know anything about him. Additionally, we see that all the kids succumb to their sweet tooth in front of Wonka except Charlie and Grandpa Joe. They think they're getting away with something when they sneak into the fizzy lifting room and try the new drink, but at the end it's revealed Wonka knew the whole time. He's all-seeing. He also bends the laws of reality. In fact, it seems he dictates reality, at least in the confines of his factory. None of his contraptions make any sense, but somehow all churn out the most delicious candy in the world. He casually mentions how he imports Oompa Loompas, these fantasy-esque creatures from Loompaland, and he casually has a flying glass elevator that defies the laws of physics and gets him around the factory. So one is literal, one is figurative, but they both have identical godlike roles in their stories. So the protagonists get transported into this creatively fueled nonsensical world, and their every move is judged by this omnipotent being who is trying to choose their champion, which will be the successor of their realm, based on who can contend with the trials placed before them. In the Shivering Isles quest, A Better Mousetrap, the player is tasked with dealing with what Sheogorath refers to as unwanted adventurers by means of tricking them into succumbing to their weaknesses. They get picked off one by one as they progress through these manipulative trials.
Gromok, be careful. This looks too good to be true.
If only Lewin were here, he could get us through this in no time.
We'll have to fend for ourselves. Do you think you can pry the door open?
Forget it. This is obviously a trick. Let's get out of here.
To be so close, and yet so far. If only we had the key. Wait, do you hear something? Look, keys. One of them must open the gate. We're rich.
Let's get out of here, Sindelius. This is obviously a trick to waste our time.
I'll know it when I see it. Yes, it must be here.
They're all fake. Just come with me now.
Find it. Yes, I must find the key. Rich beyond all my dreams.
Remember that Sheogorath's successor is not in any way predetermined. We know this because if you ever attack the Mad God, he promptly teleports you into the sky without second thought, whereupon you plummet to your death. Many adventurers come to the Isles looking for gold, some just to challenge themselves. But they all come of their own volition, and one will be chosen based on their sheer will and obedience to the ruler. This quest presents us with the exact same concept as the bulk of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. All these kids have come because they want their reward and to visit this wonderful and crazy world, but one by one they succumb to their vices, unaware this would be a test of will, morality, and sanity. And an important aspect of the humans contending with the magical world around them is whether or not they can maintain their sanity. The first thing we see walking up to the strange door that leads to the Shivering Isles are once prospective adventurers that lost their minds.
Everything is wrong. It can't be done. Stay away from me. I won't go back. You can't make me go back. I will kill you all.
We see a great deal of characters in the Isles that have also gone insane but remain in the realm. Then of course there are those the player drives mad in the quest A Better Mousetrap. One important scene to note in Willy Wonka is the Tunnel of Terror. Many of the parents and kids react very aggressively to the imagery that they're being shown. They're becoming hysterical, while Charlie and Grandpa Joe don't react as harshly in the tunnel. And Charlie even astutely points out the quick appearance of Slugworth. They are strong-willed, they can cope with the madness of the world. So ultimately the champion must first prove his compatibility with the realm, then take the place of the ruler of that realm. In order to do this, they must stop the direct antithesis of the ruler of the realm, which in both cases is also strikingly similar. It's this gray, unimaginative, corporate, logical counterpoint to that zany, creative, nonsensical ruler. In Willy Wonka, Slugworth is the non-creative mirror of Willy Wonka. He's a greedy, unimaginative businessman who's trying to steal Willy Wonka's ideas because he is so devoid of ideas himself. But in the end, you find out he actually works for Willy Wonka, and this was all part of the plan to find a suitable successor. In the Shivering Isles, the Knights of Order led by Jigalag, who represents order and deduction, attempt to overtake the Shivering Isles in an assault known as the Grey March. We find out that Jigalag is actually Sheogorath, and Sheogorath was an alternative manifestation that Jigalag was cursed to be by his Daedric Prince brothers. So they are as well intrinsically connected. There was one final aspect of these two characters that struck me as being most incredibly alike. It's not just their overall character, but the specific way in which they speak that's the same. They both speak in riddles and reversals and homonym jokes. Much like their realm, their speech is cleverly nonsensical.
Now, get going, before I change my mind. Or my mind changes me. The Daedric Prince of Order. Or biscuits. No, order. Wonderful! You seem fulfilled. Full of fill. They're the backbone of any great land. Except where the backbone is an actual backbone. Ever been to Malakoth's realm? Oh, nasty stuff. Change will preserve us. It is the lifeblood of the Isles. It will move mountains. It will mount movements.
What's that for? Gives it a little kick. But hurry, please. We have so much time and so little to see. Wait a minute. Strike that. Reverse it. We have to get on. We have so much time and so little to do. Strike that. Reverse it. Time is a precious thing, never wasted.
And that's exactly what I discovered this kind of writing is. It's called literary nonsense, which is defined as a broad categorization of literature that balances elements that make sense with some that do not, with the effect of subverting language, conventions, and logical reasoning, which is exactly what these guys are about. This writing style was most formally recognized in the 19th century and popularized by Lewis Carroll's novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Right off the bat, we can draw many similarities between Alice in Wonderland, Willy Wonka, and the Shivering Isles. These are all fairly self-evident, so I want to continue looking at the speech itself. The most notable direct similarity between Willy Wonka and Alice in Wonderland is the character of the Mad Hatter. People have always drawn similarities between the Mad Hatter and Willy Wonka, and one thing I actually found was this website that compared quotes from the Mad Hatter and quotes from Wonka and had the reader try to decide which character actually said that quote. So that was kind of interesting to find. There's a poem by Carroll from Through the Looking Glass that's considered quintessential nonsense literature. Here's an excerpt from the poem.
Beware the jub-jub bird and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal blade in hand, long time the Manx own foe he sought, so rested he by the tum-tum tree and stood a while in thought.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
I'll calicrack the find-do. I will. You tear-it at it.
This poem is called The Jabberwocky and centers on a creature called the Jabberwock, which also sounds a lot like something else. Willy Wonka, Alice in Wonderland, and the Shivering Isles all begin with the crossing of a threshold into a world where logic is suspended and boundless creativity defines reality. This concept of our imagination having power over the natural laws of the universe is both exciting and terrifying. For those with pure imagination, it's a world of endless possibilities, but for people more grounded in the real world, it's a nightmare without meaning. This is why the parents in Willy Wonka had so many objections and questions. Some of the kids did too, but their complaints were more along the lines of a know-it-all kid trying to flex their newfound knowledge,
Snozberries! Who ever heard of a snozberry?
rather than an existentially terrified adult who's seeing their reality crumbling around them.
Little surprises around every corner, but nothing dangerous.
That's why it's important to distinguish that Charlie and Grandpa Joe walk in with an open mind. The experience of new colors, sounds, and sensations is essential to child development. It's always encouraged to stimulate kids' brains with high contrasting colors, sounds, tastes, and smells. Children crave these things. Their minds are open to new experiences because they want to understand the world. When we grow up, however, we've already developed a certain grasp of how things should be. That's why The Chocolate Factory and Wonderland are so exciting to kids, and both stories center on child protagonists. They are not only worlds of pure creativity, but worlds of endless novelty, which is a magical, oxymoronic concept that to kids may be exciting, but again, to adults may be distressing. And The Shivering Isles is so dark compared to the other two because it primarily looks at adults contending with this child's fantasy world. And the realm is littered with examples of this. Some have fully reverted to behaving like a child, while others let their adult minds plague their creative endeavors.
Very interesting.
I'm sure The Shivering Isles drew directly from Alice in Wonderland since it's such a staple of literature. I think we all realized that when we first started playing it, and I'm sure it was a conscious decision on the writer's part. The overall vibe and concept of Wonderland was clearly a direct inspiration for the Isles, but The Shivering Isles and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory have, I think, even more parallels, and ones that are more direct and highly specific. I have a feeling I didn't catch everything yet. I'm curious to know if this was also an intentional decision, or if one of the writers subconsciously drew from the film. Either way, when this concept first struck me, I found myself more and more intrigued as the similarities kept drawing themselves, and I found myself farther and farther down the rabbit hole. If you guys notice any similarities I missed, and I'm sure I missed a lot, please let me know in the comments. Now, as Sheogorath would say,
Come visit again, or I'll pluck out your eyes!